New York City also has a potentially devastating problem with its drinking water infrastructure. America's largest metropolis consumes 1.2 billion gallons of water a day. That water comes to New York by way of a system of aqueducts that carry it from lakes and rivers more than 100 miles away. The aqueducts are mostly underground, and one of them, the 85-mile-long Delaware Aqueduct, is the longest continuous tunnel in the world. It's 13.5 feet in diameter, between 300 and 1,500 feet in the ground, and 70 years old.
You have maybe the best water supply system for any city anywhere on the planet. It's not pumped, it just flows naturally by gravity from its origins under the Hudson River south into the city of New York. But eventually it's going to begin to decline and begin even to fall apart.
The Delaware Aqueduct is leaking massively. Every day, the giant pipeline pours between 10 and 36 million gallons of water into the earth around it, mostly through a pair of cracks that have developed in a geologically stressed section of the tunnel.
The pipe has eroded to a point where it can no longer support the movement of that water. There are communities that are around that pipe, and literally they're flooding from underneath. And the result is here that they're sinking into the ground.
The loss of those 36 million gallons is not regarded too seriously by the recipients of the water, by the government of New York City, because in the context of the huge water supply, it isn't that much. But the fact of the matter is that it's having a very negative effect on the lives of people living here in the community.
We know for certain that some water reaches the surface. How much of an impact that has on the individual properties, I mean, we're anxious to find that out.
Much of the leaking water appears to be bubbling to the surface in Wawarsing, New York, a small town 1.5 hours north of New York City. It has the bad luck to be situated just above one of the pipe's massive leaks. The water seeps upwards through limestone rock and soil through a process known as capillarity. Surface tension, the tendency of a liquid to be attracted to another surface, causes the water to rise up against the flow of gravity through pores and other narrow openings in the earth. Some 50 homes and families have been hard hit by a host of seepage problems.
The house could fall down tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't know what our foundations are like. The water comes right up through the floor like a faucet.
The yard's sinking, so next is the house. What's going to happen? Who knows?
This is the hole that I fell into. Had I taken maybe another step or two, they would have had to dig me out.
We have everything up on stilts.
Because the water level will get up that high.
One year was way up to here. It was much higher.
It's really bad.
It's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare.
In addition to flooded basements and sinkholes, Wawarsing residents have also had problems with their drinking water. Water moving through the ground is hazardous, especially in communities with drinking water contaminants into the wells, creating the ultimate water nightmare.
We use bottled water for just about everything you can imagine you need water for. You know, washing your face in the morning, brushing your teeth, rinsing your produce with, cooking your food, and even taking a shower.
The Delaware Aqueduct was built in the 1930s and 40s and rushed into service during World War II, when high-grade materials were scarce. During construction, groundwater seeped so heavily into the section under Wawarsing that engineers had to line the aqueduct with steel and seal it with concrete.
The tunnel went through a limestone fault at that spot, and it's not surprising that now we're faced with leakage.
A full inspection of the tunnel is currently impossible. The Delaware Water Tunnel hasn't been shut down for inspection since 1957 because engineers fear it could collapse without the pressure of water surging through the system. But planning is underway for an eventual shutdown.
And similar to yours. Some of your projects that are sitting at the table right now on the PAC committee are some of the most difficult projects that we're faced with throughout all of them. So we've been working through them with the engineers. The of the things that I'm seeing in the field are some of the obvious problems that I'm going to say that all of you are experiencing. It's flooded basements, it's structural issues with modular homes, it's cracks in your masonry block unit walls, and it's flooding into the wells, especially the deeper drilled wells that we're seeing out there. They seem to be much more affected by contamination than some of the wells that are 20, 30, 40, 50 feet deep. What I'm hearing in the field from people is my wells are bad that are drilled deep into bedrock, and the ones that are just on the surface don't touch my water. It's nice and clean.
We have a situation in the town of Warsing in Ulster County where there are approximately 30 homes over the New York City aqueduct that is leaking badly. So what happens is the water is coming up under these people's homes, filling the basement. Whether they have respiratory problems, they have mold, they're constantly using generators to pump out the water in their cellar. It's an emotional nightmare living like that. Now, New York City denies that the water coming up into their homes is a result of the leaking aqueduct. We know that it is.
Everything's being covered up here. There's a gag order on the press.
There's more money on the way for some residents living in the town of Warsing. The New York City Department of Environmental Protection announced this Friday more than $12 million have been earmarked to help those impacted by the leaking Delaware aqueduct. $7 million will go toward expanding the Napanook Water District to include 275 more homes. Another $5.5 million is being set aside to fix the homes of local residents damaged by years of flooding from an underground concrete tunnel which supplies roughly half of New York City's drinking water.
There's a lot going on that you need to know, and I'm not afraid to say it. I was trying to push out of my house. I wouldn't let them. They raised my taxes to try to drive me out because my stepmother fought the town about this. There's broken water pipes underneath the ground. You can't drink the water. This is by Lippman Park in Warsing, where the dump is. A lot of it has to do with the poisons that ran from the dump underneath. I can water my plants with the water and they die. My house is supposed to be fixed by the DEP, and the guy in charge of that in the village here, he keeps pretending he doesn't know me. My house is full of mold, and I really need to have a meeting with you. And the lady out at the table has my business card. I do dog rescue on business cards. There's a lot here that you need to know, and I'm not afraid to stand up and represent these people here because everybody's afraid to tell you. I've commented on Facebook on your page, but I'm sure somebody else runs that page. But we really need you. We need to have an office in Elkville because people need you here. That boy did die of brain cancer that she mentioned, and nobody cares. They drove the man to Florida, bought his house out so he'd shut up. They had him arrested. His name is Mike Wendell. He runs a page on Facebook called Maximum Waters. And I think you should go on.
The contamination that people are being exposed to time and time again.
But this is bad. This is really bad.
Yes, we are.
They just want to buy our houses out, the DEP, knock them down, and that's it. They want people to shut up. They want you to sign a health waiver that if you got sick from the mold or the water, you won't sue once they buy your house out plus 10%. That's why this house is missing all along 209 in Warsing. And it's also they can pocket the money.
We will be talking some more, you and I.
We need to sit down and talk. My name is Denise.
Denise, thank you, Denise. And listen, it's about making sure that the issue is it's a pervasive problem. It's a big problem. It's a problem that if you actually own it, corruption is too. And if you own it, the amount of effort it's going to take and to deal with it, I think is the reason why there's so much of an attempt to bury it.
It's not just the water, it's the ground, it's the earth, it's everywhere. And if I can prevent or save somebody or just make somebody aware that it's around, so maybe they can make the conscious decision to leave the area if they want. You know, I mean, if I would have known what I know now when I was pregnant with Jackson, I probably wouldn't have moved.
The village gave Candela permission to hold a public forum at the meeting hall November 7th. That's where she plans to make a presentation focusing on local sites she believes pose a threat and to release more information on the potential health risk linked to contaminants.
Hi, my name is Paul Danko. I'm a 15 or 16 year employee of New York City Department of Environmental Protection, DEP. I work for the Watershed Department, which is upstate, in charge of the fresh water that goes to New York City. I was partially, I don't know, I was responsible in grand jury testimony that which wound up the city to give a plead guilty to some criminal act that I never even knew. This is all public knowledge. They had to rehab the sluice gates, which contained the mercury that was getting into the aqueduct, and that's the only fresh water source and potable water going to New York City. They're gonna fire me. They've been retaliating against me since. They're gonna fire me on the 16th. It sounds like my lawyer has been in touch with the disciplinary council. They're violating whistleblower laws. I just wanted everybody to know that what other rules are they flagrantly disregarding? I don't know an employee in their right mind now that would report the DEP doing something wrong after seeing what happened to me. I'm a high-profile employee. Everybody in the upstate east of Hudson district knows me. If they don't know me, they heard of me. A lot of things that happened. I was putting this out there to see if somebody was interested. Could you email me back? The more the people spread this around, the more chance of people seeing what happens. This is small government stuff. This is just city of New York. I can imagine how bad it gets if it's not brought to light. This is the water for 9 million people in the city of New York. Who would speak up?